Excuse me, is this the reading room?
Yes, I'm Saad Manzoor.
And I'm Travis Howard.
This is Reading Room Talk live from Howard University College of Medicine. We're very excited to be here. Thank you guys very much for having us. And we're here. It's 2024. We have our post-match panel today. So please, our two panelists, please introduce yourselves. Tell us where you matched at. And tell us what your toughest class rotation here at Howard's been.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Trevino. I matched Diagnostic Radiology at Rutgers in New Brunswick.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Round of applause.
Toughest rotation was probably OB. Also the rotation where I solidified my choice. I was like, it's radiology. 2 a.m. on OB overnights. That's when I figured it out.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. OB is OB.
It's a tough one.
That's why in the Radiology Interest Group. Excellent. Now, Andres, how about yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, evening by now, everyone. My name is Andres Aquino. I'm IR in Writer and the Medical College of Wisconsin.
Nice.
Oh,
Congratulations.
wow.
Congrats.
Great program, man.
It is a
Yeah.
good program. It's a powerhouse of IR, one of my top choices, so I am very happy about that. Now, my toughest rotation, it depends of what you ask, physically or mentally. Physically, my toughest rotation was surgery. Mentally, is medicine. I just don't do internal medicine well. I hate running forever. I am more hands-on. I love the analytical aspect of diagnostic radiology. So I like the hands-on training. That's why IR was my go-to specialty.
Wonderful.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, you're wearing the scrubs. You got the scrub hat on.
Hey,
It's official.
I was born to do it.
You were ready.
I love it. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, a little bit background here. So where are you from, Nick, and where'd you go to undergrad?
Sure. So I grew up in a military family, so I'm kind of all over the place. But I usually say that most of my childhood I spent in upstate New York.
Okay.
A small town called Clayton. And then I lived in Maryland up in Frederick since I was like 14 or so.
Okay.
Went to undergraduate at University of Maryland.
Nice. Okay. So you're local product. Awesome. And Andres, how about yourself?
Well, my story is a little bit complicated. I am a non-traditional candidate by all means. I was born in the Dominican Republic, raised in Puerto Rico. When I was 18, I came to the U.S., in and out. Long story short, joined the military, traveled abroad, got a job in the federal government, and got crazy enough and decided I wanted to do medicine. Quit my job, went to medical school. Before education-wise, I got a bachelor's degree in chemistry from the University of Puerto Rico, and I got a master in biochemistry from the University of St. Joseph. Now,
Nice.
this is my dream job.
Wow.
And that's where I'm at.
That's
Awesome.
wonderful.
I
That's
served in the military, obviously. That's the time in Germany that I was doing.
and which branch were you in?
And the Army.
In the Army? Oh.
Hey, if you don't serve in the Army, you are not in the military.
Oh, wow. So tell me, your federal job, what were you doing?
So I did multiple jobs where I can hijack the whole night if I start talking, but I started after I left my military service in the Department of Homeland Security in Connecticut. From there I took a promotion to the Department of Defense in Philadelphia and took another promotion that brought me to DC for the Beauty Engraving and Printing as a security features manager. And that's where I quit my job and came to
I can relate a little bit, so I want to know, what was that moment like when you decided, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm going to medical school? What were you doing? You remember?
Well, I remember this has been a transition because I look back to the time that I was the most satisfied, and it was actually treating troops downrange. So I was a military medic. I was stationed in a level 1 trauma center.
Okay.
And we received so many medevac, and I just that satisfaction of working with your hands, saving somebody's life, was my trigger. At the moment, I did not recognize, because I didn't have any mentors that told me, hey, you should be a doctor.
Yeah.
So I just continued my career. But even though I was progressing to my federal job, I look back like that was the time that was the happiest.
Yeah.
So time gonna pass regardless. If you are one person out there hearing just like myself, 4 years gonna pass regardless if you continue your career or you pursue your dreams. So folks, go ahead for it.
That's right. Exactly,
Good
man.
for you.
That's great.
That's really good. That's
That's
really
great.
good. So, and Nick, did you you knew you were gonna do medicine from the beginning?
No, my story is also kind of all over the place. My mom was a nurse in the emergency room, so I shadowed her from a pretty young age. She worked in a small hospital in upstate New York. I was about 14 at the time. That's when I first had my interest. We moved to Maryland. My plans, I was a little bit all over the place as a teen. Went to college. I was pre-med for about a year and a half. Decided to stop it because academically it was just a little bit much. It was more I was doing well in my classes, but it was more of an insecurity thing. I'm really bad at taking tests with the MCAT years in advance. I was like, this is going to be tough. I don't want to do this. So I got my degree in psychology. I worked a bunch of jobs throughout college. I worked at suicide hotlines. I worked at a camp for kids as residential counselor, doing therapy. I worked as a rehab counselor. But around the time that I graduated, when I was 22, 23, I was looking back and I was like, man, I changed my life path because I didn't have the confidence in myself to do well in this exam. I reflected. I was like, that's not how I want to live my life. So I
Was there a moment that just was just what am I doing? What happened to make
it
you?
It was the post-graduation feeling where I was like, okay, I'm gonna go into social work or therapy, and I was just way back then I wanted to do something else. Why did I change that? And it was just kind of an insidious feeling that I would feel a lot of regret if I didn't go back and try. So I was working a full-time job. I was taking classes in the nighttime because I had to finish my STEM classes. So
the prereqs, yes.
All the prereqs. So I had to take courses for about a year and a half overnight while I was working. Did well in my classes, did well in the MCAT, got into medical school. So
did you take an MCAT class, or how did you kind of get over that hurdle?
Yeah, it was tough. But since I was taking the classes with such intention to do well in them, studying for the MCAT wasn't as hard. But I saved up enough money working my job to take off a couple of months so that I could just focus on finishing my class and taking the MCAT so that I could apply to the next cycle in that springtime.
Well, Nick, congrats to you, man, because I think a lot of people might pivot to an easier path based on fear, and you may always have that question, but you were able to overcome that. And I think that's huge. This is a lot about your character. And then, you did well. You did well when you thought you wouldn't. So, for those who might be questioning whether or not they can do it based on this big almighty MCAT, the fear is normal, but you got to try.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's a good life lesson. I think a lot of people, when it comes to the MCAT, job situations, relationships, sometimes you just don't want to have a question. You want to have an answer. If you go, try your best, get through the MCAT, either you'll do well or you won't. But at least it's an answer either way. Because then you can kind of move on with your life and move on, kind of see what you want to do. But at least you have an answer. But just sitting there with a question is, I think it's tough, and you can really gnaw at people. It sounds like you kind of had a question for a little bit, and then you were like, let me just go get the answer. And you got the answer, and it was a positive answer. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Andrea, same thing. Did you kind of were you interested in medicine from the beginning?
Well, I ironically, being a military medic, that was my first taste of medicine.
But even before that,
Before that, my mom was a nurse. She always was.
Oh, wow.
You should pursue medicine, nursing. There is always a job. It pays well. But I said I would never do that. So I studied chemistry as far as possible as medicine. But when I went to the recruiting station, they say, we need medics. You should be a medic. And that was the catalyst for where I'm at right now.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So how did you get interested in radiology?
Well, that's funny because, excuse me, when I was coming to medical school, I was certain I was going to do trauma surgery or emergency medicine. I mean, everything linked out to trauma or to surgery.
You're a military medic. Yeah, they don't usually do radiology.
I
So
thought for sure that that's going to be my path to medicine. That was my driver to come to medicine. But then I got into medical school, and I remember during the second year, we were having the radiology lecture with Dr. Davis, my awesome mentor.
Shout out Dr. Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and she was doing such a great job presenting the images. And for me, I felt that was natural. Every time I encountered a test that I saw images, I saw many of my students around me panicking. I said, good, I got like a key. So, the long story short, that was my first intentional look of radiology.
Mm-hmm.
But I could not abandon procedures completely. I did not know that radiology itself, diagnostic radiology, got so many procedures. So I did not know that. I was the cliche, surgery cliche, that diagnostic radiology just antisocial, sit down in the dark. I said, that's not me. I like procedures.
Yeah.
But then I did the research and encountered IR, and I say, instantly resonate. I say, that's me, where that thing has been.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. That's I mean, that happens to a lot of people. Like in medicine in general, like people who aren't in medicine, you know, they think medicine's one thing. Once you get into medicine, you're like, oh, you know, it's very different. Then you choose a field. Even in the field, everything can be very, very different. So it's good that you actually like kind of exposed yourself to all the different, you know, aspects. You know, like you were exposed to like imaging from Dr. Davis, and then you know, from there you were able to like see that you can do procedures, and it was kind of a done deal for you. So similar story for Travis, I'm sure.
For sure, yeah, man. I had a question of to Nick. I wanted to ask you a question about matching, and if you could maybe list a couple of things that you think gave you an edge throughout the matching process. What would you say they were?
Yeah, I think that my biggest edge as an applicant was probably my personal statement, and I forget what exactly they call it. There's a section where you can put like 300 or 400 characters to describe like an especially impactful event or like arc in your life. I had on at least like half of my interviews, someone either mentioned a specific piece of my personal statement or what I wrote about in my like important life event. So I think that section is a great way to highlight something that's very unique about yourself, because I think the personal statement is often very directed to, why do you like radiology? What are the important characteristics about yourself? But that little section where you just get to talk about something that's like very important to you, your character, and like how you came to develop, even if it's not radiology adjacent. I think that's something that can be pretty powerful, and again was something that I hadn't mentioned to me on a lot of interviews. So
you mind sharing? What was the hook?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded that my mom was like a nurse. When I was 14, my father was actually arrested, and my mom sort of raised me and my two siblings, on her own from that point on.
Oh, wow.
So she was a tremendous role model for me in many ways. She was a very loving, hardworking mother that even despite, kind of our family's world falling apart, she was very strong for us. And at no point, despite her, working egregious shifts as a nurse, at no point did I feel that she didn't love me, she didn't care for me and my family. She was just that person for me that inspired me and was always saying, you're smart, you can do whatever you want. If you want to go into medicine, go for it. If you want to go into social work, go for it. Just, unflinching in her advocacy for me. So that was something that I spoke to, and wanting to strive to, embody her qualities of empathy and compassion, and equanimity under duress, like that sort of thing. That's what I spoke to.
That's wonderful,
that's
man.
awesome, man.
Yeah, that's
Shout out Nick's mom.
Yeah, it's a real world example of how you can balance.
Yeah.
You can balance being in healthcare and also, being a strong family man or family woman. Yeah.
We gotta take us back then. So like when you made that decision to go into medicine, and then what was her reaction to like you getting into med school?
Oh, I mean, she was ecstatic. Of
Yeah?
course. Yeah. I think, my mom she got her nursing degree, which was like an associate's degree, and she was the first person in our family to go to college. And then,
Wow.
I was the next person, at least from my mom's side of the family. And then, now I'm the first to get into medical school, the first to match. She's...
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, she's my rock. She supports me in everything. But yeah, any victory that I celebrate, she celebrates twice as hard. So.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's really nice. That's really cool. And were you interested in radiology from the beginning as well, or were you kind of?
So I came from psychology, so psychiatry, and then I also scribed in the emergency room. So those were kind of my two, emergency medicine and psychiatry. But
You made a left turn.
Yeah, we got away from it. I think when I was working as a rehab counselor, there was a lot of interdisciplinary team meetings with like me as like a rehab counselor, psychiatrists, social workers, just peer advocates. And those interdisciplinary meetings were kind of like when I realized that being a facilitator was something that I enjoyed a lot. And I think in radiology, that's kind of the role that I like being. You have your hand everywhere, in all parts of the hospital, and you're constantly talking with attendings. And maybe there's not as much like direct patient interaction, but you're very much a part of like many different teams. That's a role that I like. So
You're going to be running tumor boards, man, everywhere.
Yeah. No, that's very true. I think that's the whole thing when you get exposed to radiology. Again, like it's not just imaging. It's not just, you know, sitting in a room by yourself. Like you actually are like dictating like what happens to patients, patient management, you know, urgency, acuity, like all of that is like up to the radiologist. So I mean, it's a great field. You know, we've been doing it for a few years. So yeah, a couple years, but it's really nice. So, you know, you really do still get like the ability to like kind of affect patient care. You get to talk to a lot of different people. You get to be an expert in many, many different things. You know, like we talk about it all the time. You'll have a neurosurgeon call you about like an MRI brain. Then the next moment you'll have like an orthopedic surgeon ask you about an MRI of the knee. And then you have like another surgeon ask you about like a CT abdomen. And then there's an OB, you know, like all these things. You really do get exposure to everything.
Yeah.
And same thing in the IR world. I mean, you probably talk to every person in the hospital.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes, man. And I see, you know, Saad has generated reports. He's generated all types of reports from PET CTs to some of the exams you mentioned, and the collaboration and knowing your colleagues and collaborating with them, it makes a world of difference. So your skill set that the things you've experienced are definitely going to come into play.
Yeah.
But Andres, what were the things that gave you your edge during the application process?
Well, very similar. If I can quote two things, the first one was my non-traditional background and my personal statement. I think that was highlighted in every single one of my interviews. But in IR, being such a competitive field like radiology and everything in medicine, but IR being such a small niche with such a few programs. The SIR, I got involved as soon as I discovered IR. I got involved into the SIR and the SIR networking.
So what is SIR real quick so everyone knows?
That's the Society of Interventional Radiology, which is free to sign up. They not only were an advocate, but I was fortunate to be selected for both the summer internship program and the GENS program. And for people that doesn't know what those programs is, the summer internship program essentially they pay you to go for 2 months and away rotation in one of the IR powerhouse. You essentially not only doing research, but you are also performing like a sub-internship. So you are learning a lot about IR. The GENS program is an online program and they pay you as well. What it does is set up like a course dedicated to IR, all the procedures, all the things that IR does, and those things help me quite a bit of time. And my personal statement, I think that was the highlight.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
So let me ask you, where did you do the program at?
Hey, right on the Medical College of Wisconsin.
Oh, the connections. So you did the program there, then you matched IR there.
Yeah, so before
Or SIR.
the irony, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the irony,
Not an accident.
Not accident. I think that if you are considering, sorry.
Oh, actually.
If you are considering radiology or interventional radiology, I think that don't underestimate the power of away rotations. For me, it was key.
Yeah.
And only that, many of my colleagues that have matched, they have matched the majority of people I talk to, they match in the place that they did away rotation. So I think that with so many competitive applicants, the edge is given to the people that they know. If you work well, you got the ethics, you got a little bit of advantage, I would say.
For sure.
Oh, for sure. And like this season was like an online interviews as well.
Yes.
So the fact that they met you in person for 2 months and saw how you were working, I mean, that's easy decision for them.
For
you
sure.
know,
The power of a known entity.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us, we need some more details now, since I guess it sounds like the online interviews are going to be like the future, potentially. So how did you guys set up for your online interviews? Like, where'd you do them in your house? How did you set up the lighting? Like, that's all important stuff, I feel like now.
Yeah. I mean, I just set it up in my office, you know, sort of adjacent to the window so that the lighting was kind of good naturally, nothing crazy going on in the background. Yeah, I don't think that I put a ton of like preparation. It just felt pretty generic and basic. Like, I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't look messy, and make sure that I comb my hair and do everything right on my end. But
That's good.
Yeah.
Andreas, how about yourself?
Well, for me, the biggest thing was trying to be natural, trying to lose that fear that you are talking to a computer, and basically look at the person. Think about like you are talking to somebody, and that's the key. You are interviewing for a position that you dream of, most likely, and you are hoping to be there. You have to make that connection. I know that it's hard to do on a screen, but just imagine that you are in a desk talking to the other person across the desk, trying to remove that computer feeling away from it, and that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, I mean, like when we went through it, obviously you were able to meet people in person. So I feel like the comment you made about like just having like some things to like talk about on your personal statement, they can ask you about is very important. Something that's, something deep, something that's like, something that can be talked to. And then, like you said, you're trying to make a connection, in kind of, I guess this is how it is now, where you're just kind of talking to the screen, but, just trying to make some type of connection with them. Now, did you guys get any like crazy questions like throughout the interview process, or anything that kind of came from left field at all?
I think most of my questions were pretty straightforward, kind of what you would expect. But at one program, the last interviewer and her last question was, if there was a zombie apocalypse and you could only bring like one thing, what would you bring? And then the follow-up was, if there is a camp that's like fortressed and it seems like they're growing their own crops, you really want to get in, what are you going to tell them about yourself to let them let you in? So that was probably the only strange question that I got. But
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how I would answer that one.
yeah,
I don't know either.
Like, what are you going to contribute to society?
Yeah, it's tough. Andreas, how about yourself?
I think that for me, that's the funny thing. I got, similar to Nick, all my interviews were pretty expected. Actually, was a lot more friendly than I expected. Nobody asked me crazy things about the ED. It was more, who are you? Do you fit? Now, this program asked me something that I was completely caught off guard, which it was, tell me the most embarrassing thing that happened to you. Give it granted. I'm an ex-military. There is a lot of things I have to gauge.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to get me fired? So I had to think about what was the most embarrassing thing. And he shared his most embarrassing thing. I think it was a nice segue. But you have to come in a response. So many things cross through your head, and you have to respond within 10 seconds, basically, to look natural. And I think I did well.
Oh, that's good. Well, obviously you did. You guys both matched, so it worked out. Are there any questions that you guys asked that you felt like were good questions to ask the interviewers as well, like during your process? Or just to get to know programs, since you weren't like going there to like actually see the programs, other than Andreas, but what questions did you guys ask to kind of get to know the people in the program better?
I think that my go-to that I would usually ask was like, what activities do you do with the residents, both like socially and also like what do your interactions look like in like mentorship roles? So if like a resident comes to you with like concerns about X, Y, and Z, like how are you responding to them? Is there like protected time where I can like come and see you as a resident? Yeah, those were kind of like what I was trying to gauge, is how am I going to be treated as a resident? And it's usually pretty easy to gauge like the reactions from like the program directors, about how sincere they were about, how much time are you really giving residents? How much do you actually value it? So it's just kind of like, me gauging like their nonverbals to see, if they're actually engaged in a way that, feels
Good. Yeah, it's good. That's a real good question. Good question. About yourself, Andres?
Yeah, for me, basically, I asked, excuse me, somewhat uncomfortable question, but I feel that needed to be asked. Coming from an HU, obviously historical black university, in radiology we don't have a lot of diversity. Many of these programs, including the program that I matched, the majority of the folks didn't look like me.
Mhm.
So I had to ask why you guys have this population? Do you have any proactive approach? Not to give me an advantage, because I explained to them, I live in Germany. I don't feel stranger to be the minority. But do you guys have any programs to support people like me? Because I'm going to be working 6 years. I want to feel that it's a supportive and friendly environment. And ultimately, that's the key thing. It's not about, you can have the strongest program in the world, and if you don't have the support base, you don't have nothing.
Talk about
So for me, that was the main thing. You will be surprised the response that I have. Some programs give me great response. They don't have control over the match. They are doing X, Y, Z. Other programs responded with a simple, well, we don't have diversity of racial, but we got diversity of ethnicity. For example, he's from Germany, he's from Austria, and that was kind of a soft answer.
Oh, yeah.
That's good to know about the program, though.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like that's good information.
I
Good or
stress
bad,
that.
it's good information. Yeah. So
You
that's
gotta know.
good.
And they're both in the same vein. You got to know you're going to be supported.
Yeah.
Where you're
Yeah.
going.
So Travis was at he was at Mayo. So I'm sure those are questions you had to ask.
I
Those are
did.
questions you
I
have
did.
to like,
What do
you know,
do?
figure it out. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So you want to be bold.
Now the thing I have to say, be careful how you format the question.
Yes,
Because
very
the
important.
question can look very aggressive. You are not trying to be aggressive. You're trying to be genuine as somebody that you want to work with them, but they have to understand the line that you need the support for you to be successful.
No.
And the courage it takes for you to ask that question.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yes.
Because then you could even look nervous. And you could even come across aggressive. But
Yeah.
really, you're just trying to get that question out.
Yeah.
So, when you're talking to the right program, you'll get that comfort level. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like, I understand it's hard for you to ask that question, but this is what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Now it's brave and bold of you to ask, and it's important. You know,
have to
it
do
gives you information, not just what they're saying, but how they're saying it. Like because if you can't ask that question on Zoom when you have an issue and you're at the program, like how are you going to bring it up? So
Yeah.
that's important. That's really good.
In my opinion, the question needs to be asked, and regardless of your fear, you have to overcome, because ultimately, if the program feel offended for you asking that question, or they blackball you, they say, okay, he's asking weird question, we don't want him here, then that program wasn't for you to begin with.
That's right. I agree.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's very true. So tell us. So it sounds like you kind of applied. So it sounds like you're kind of interested in DR only. So did you consider like the other track, or was it just DR fully?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely applied with like in the back of my mind, like, could I enjoy interventional? Like maybe, but I'm going to apply exclusively DR. But most of the programs that I interviewed at had ESIR, the early specialization track. So
Oh,
that
can you
was, like,
explain that? Because we're old. We have no
Yeah,
idea what that
yeah,
is.
no problem. So ESIR is just a mini fellowship
Okay.
that they, depending on the program, so at Rutgers, they have 2 slots for
Okay.
the 7 of us. If you're interested in interventional radiology, you do a couple of rotations and you decide, I want to do this. At the end of your second year, you can apply for ESIR. Up to 2 students can get it. And then in your 3rd and 4th year, you just do more interventional rotations.
Okay.
That way, when you apply for fellowship, you can complete the fellowship in 1 year as opposed to 2 years if you don't do the ESIR track.
Oh, I
I
see.
see.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that was something that I kept in the back of my mind. I always asked about ESIR,
Yeah.
whether or not it was available, asking the residents whether or not it was good within the program, because some programs just don't have much IR, even if they did have like ESIR tracks.
Yeah.
So it's something that I kept in the back of my mind. But yeah, I'm pretty undifferentiated as far as like subspecialty, which was something that I was like pretty clear
Yeah.
about.
And there's a lot to do in DR as well. You like if you end up in DR and want to do like a lot of procedures, there's fellowships you can do in that too. So
Wow.
So Andreas, you're top rope, man. I can see it. So tell me, how did you kind of make your decision to do IR? Like, did you apply both programs, both tracks, or like how did you kind of manage that situation?
Yes, sir. So I think the radiology, the field of radiology as a whole, is becoming so super competitive that you will be crazy if you apply only IR and no DR. You have to have backup. I did apply for both, but the field is differentiating quite a bit too. because I expected to have a lot of more diagnostic radiology interviews, and I only have very minuscule numbers of diagnostic radiology. Many of them were ESIR programs, so basically the same program that gave me the IR interview, gave me the DR interview, and those programs were pretty comfortable. Only one program gave me exclusive DR interview, and the whole interview was, are you sure that you can leave without doing procedures? Are you sure that you don't want to do IR? Unfortunately for me, if I will do it all over again, I will try to be a little bit less biased in my application, meaning the whole application was screaming IR. I am thankful for the match because I don't think that I would have matched anywhere else other than IR because it was so strongly IR.
Yeah. But I mean, you got yourself an answer though. I mean, you might have not been as happy if you would have, kind of not went all in on like the application being like very high IR heavy,
Right.
So.
Could have been, but I love DR. I have
Yeah.
to say, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You have to say that.
It's a good foundation, man. It's
No,
a
it is. I
foundation.
mean, as Travis knows, when you're like trying to figure out procedures and, I mean, really just being like on a team, like, cause you're going to be on a radiology team with other DR people, like being able to kind of help out, with, reading like, regular DR stuff is very, very helpful. Makes you very, very, important, as part of the team, so, and then, being able to read this stuff, I mean, you'll be able to like tell the DR people like, hey, by the way, you missed this. So, that's super important.
Never worded that way,
No,
It's
you
just-
don't.
it's
Not if you want to be a good
think
teammate.
about-
No, not if you want to be a good teammate.
What do
No.
you think about this?
Exactly. These are all the soft skills you guys are going to learn.
Yeah.
Very cool. So tell us, man. So real quick, so Nick and Andreas, just tell us what advice would you give to like a younger person, interested in radiology to like kind of motivate themselves to like get into it, even though they may be a little bit scared about the application process and what it would entail.
Yeah, I think I would just say like just do your research, figure out if it's something that you actually enjoy. Because if you enjoy it, I feel like the people that enjoy radiology really enjoy it. So gauge your interest. If it's something you're really interested in, just go for it. Like be confident, believe in yourself. Find mentors. I think that was really crucial for me. Finding Dr. Davis, and the Radiology
Shout out.
Interest Group. I think that those connections are really important so that you can both gauge yourself and also make the connections to go on to better and greater things. Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, a lot of times it's that we've talked about this, a lot, but a lot of it is like, it's not really picking the specialty, it's picking like the people, when you can get along with the people in like whatever specialty you choose, then that might be your people, so Andreas, what would you tell a youngin interested, trying to be like Andreas?
Yeah, similar to Nick. I think don't be afraid. Time gonna pass regardless. If you go to medicine, be open to other fields because anybody that comes to medicine think that we're gonna do something and possibly you end up doing something else. Now, for radiology specifically, I found the personalities. I think that find a specialty that matches your personality. You might love surgery, you might want to do surgery, but can you be a surgeon? That's a different question. Can you live with the surgical, not only personality, but the group? You are living, we spend more time at work than we do at home, in generally speaking, in medicine. So you want to be where people that think and act like you.
Yeah.
I think that radiology and interventional radiology, honestly, I think that they are the best specialty because we touch everything in medicine. Yeah, and I could not have been happier.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm
And
excited
the
for you
thing
guys.
is, and that goes back to your away rotations too, because a surgeon at my prior medical school, or my medical school, and a surgeon at Kaiser, they're kind of different beasts. So you
that's true.
you have to expose yourself to different environments so that you get a general feel. Because sometimes you might rotate with a team that you're like, man, I do not like these people, and it may
Yeah.
taint your view. But
But if you're interested, you have to have more exposure.
you do.
Yeah,
Well,
you have
and
to
it's
expose
hard to
yourself.
get that time, carve out that time. It's
Yeah.
with the studying and trying to make in personal life. But I feel like the more you can expose yourself, the better off you'll be, and it'll all work out.
For sure. Awesome. Well, we appreciate you guys making the time with us here, and we appreciate you guys putting all the knowledge on wax, and hopefully this will, inspire the next group to do even better. We'll ask the group here, do you guys have any questions at all that we can answer for you guys, or who'd like to ask the panelists up here?
Yeah. Question was there ever a time where you thought as an attending that maybe you should have done something else? I think I'll go first. I think there are times you get frustrated with, logistics and access to care. And, depending on where you work and who's in charge and where money's allocated, where resources are allocated, you might get frustrated. And in those moments, you think, well, if I was a vascular surgeon, maybe we would have more of a budget. But at the end of the day, you think about it and you get through your anger and you're like, I could never do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that. That's really those are the only times where I'm upset about, or maybe think that maybe it'd be different if I had done something else. But by far, I'm happy with what I'm doing. The time difference, it's just not even. You just know you're mad and get over it.
Funny. I would say not never.
Not never.
Not never, because when I went to med school, I wanted to be a surgeon. I've told this story before multiple times, but it was just I ended up liking looking at the imaging more than actually going to the OR. But it was important for me to be exposed to the OR just to know that might not be for me. And then I think one thing I've been pleasantly surprised with in radiology is that there's just so much flexibility. So I have there's radiologists who work from home exclusively, and then there's other diagnostic radiologists who go in every day. There's mammography where you actually get patient care. You're kind of talking to patients who have cancer. I did a MSK fellowship, and I'm into sports, so I get to read MRIs of all the different body parts that I like. And even now, the current job, I do procedures sometimes, and then I go work from home sometimes. So just having that flexibility, and I think that's important, later on for life, with kids, a family, just being able to have a work-life balance is super important. So I'm glad that people told me to do radiology. I had mentors who told me early on who were you should do radiology. I called them stupid, and now I'm doing radiology. So that's, you just don't close doors. If you're kind of interested in it, get some information and see if you can, make a decision for yourself. And again, we talked about, a lot of it is really just picking your tribe, picking the people that you feel like you can get along with and, communicate with every day. So that's, I would say no regrets at all. Any other questions at all? Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question. So the question was just advice on personal statements, and there's typical stories for different specialties. But what would you say for the personal statements?
Well, I think what I find when we talk to folks who've matched is that they really have just spoken from the heart and told their story. And I think once you get to medical school and you're here, more often than not, you have a story to tell. And I think it'll inspire those that are reading it. If it can inspire those who are reading it, then I think that will plant a good seed for you. I don't think the idea is to wow people, to just, to be outside of the box. It's just to be honest, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's all about honesty, and then just being confident in your story. Because again, like sometimes in medicine, they make you feel like, like what you've accomplished is like not a lot, but you've made it to med school. That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
Like not most people do that, and the fact that you got there, there was a journey involved. There's people who helped you. There was mentors. There was struggles. Like these are all things to communicate and talk about. And you guys did a great job communicating that, like in your personal statements and also when you interviewed. The cut and dry, kind of stuff is like whatever. But I mean, you guys have a unique experience. You're also here at a HBCU. It's a different experience. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are going to be unique when you guys apply. Mm-hmm. And it's important to like kind of highlight all of those things whenever you are going through the process. And nothing's too small, like if it's something that's really affected you as you've gone along in your journey, it's important to communicate that so you can have a conversation about it during your interviews, just like our panelists have. So yeah. I wouldn't. And the other big thing is like don't compare yourself to other people. Don't compare yourself to, that's huge. Like what other people's application processes are. Like your application process is completely unique, and you're the one applying. They're looking for you, not for somebody else. And if you end up, if you're talking to people like at a program and they're looking for something that's not you, that's good information to have. Like that's like, okay, now I know. Like I know that like this might not be the place for me. I'll still rank you, but maybe not as high, you know? So, like, that's all good information to have.
And to your point, man, it's so hard to break from that. Everything we do is, where's your class rank? Yeah. What's your rank list? Yeah. What are your grades? How high did you score on the MCAT? And then you tell somebody who's an attending, or you get older and you get more mature, and you're like, don't compare yourself. But you have to keep that in mind because we all have our unique skill set, and never forget that. So. Yeah. But I think, Andres, you were going to say something about personal statement.
Yeah, so basically coming from a recent, obviously, interview season and personal statement, go back to what makes you, what ticks you. Go back to the root, why you chose radiology. Communicate the information of this is who am I, and why you chose radiology. Now, something that someone told me that I really believe in, which I still believe that is true. Once you get the interview, scores don't matter.
Yes,
they are ready.
True facts.
You.
Yes.
They just want to see if you fit.
That's true.
So just once you get an interview, just talk. Just be honest. Don't make up stuff. If you're gonna fit to the program, you'll be okay. It's normal to be nervous, but just communicate your information. That's the way it is.
Definitely. Once you made it to the interview, it's a great point. Don't look backwards. You made it to the interview, so that's super important because, as you know, it's a very competitive process now. Like, I mean, to get the interview is very tough. So to get the interview is a major accomplishment. So from there, it's about yourself at that point.
And I think I've said it before on prior match meetings. If you know you want to be somewhere, have that communicated.
Yeah.
You can have that communicated from, obviously from yourself or through Dr. Davis. Hey, this is my number one. Let people know this is where I want to be. It shows your commitment, shows how excited you are to be at that program.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a world of difference because, programs, statistically, they want their numbers to look good. They want to say, hey, we got our first matches.
Right, exactly. So, like, I think it's against the rules to, like, ask, like, where are you going to rank someone, but you can volunteer that information. And I did that when I was applying. Like, once I, kind of went through my interview process, I told George Washington here at GW, I told them I was going to rank him number one. They had just kind of said thank you and ended up matching there. And like Travis said, like, they do want to make sure that they get people that want to be at that particular program. So the more information you can put out there for them, the easier it can make that decision for them as well. And there's a whole, thing about like rank to match, which means that like if a program has like 12 slots, that you're in their top 12. And sometimes the way to get up into your top 12 is to like, let them know, hey, like I'm actually ranking you guys number one. So later on, like when they're having their like internal discussions, they can say, hey, this guy actually said they're going to rank us number one. And then that can move you up just because they know that you would come, So any other questions at all?
Yeah, so since I only applied to Diagnostic, I just had them write Diagnostic. And I didn't really give much direction. I just asked for a letter, and I just said, try to speak to the qualities that you find most like attractive in me as like an applicant. So I didn't give like too much direction beyond just I'm applying DR, and I need a DR letter, please.
Yeah, for me specifically, IR being kind of a surgical specialty, I decided to go for a share of surgery here in Howard, and I asked them, can you please give me a letter? Because always, for this specialty, it looks good to have something different, I think. Now, I made sure that I got my IR letters. So, with the IR letters, one faculty of IR, Dr. Dixon, he's no longer here.
Oh, shout out.
Yes. But he gave me a really good letter. One letter that I got was in my away rotation. The chair of radiology, Dr. Davis, he essentially said, do you want me to make it specific, or you want me to make it kind of both ways? And I told her, you make it. I know that you are a fantastic letter writer. I give it in your hands. So that's the way I felt.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You guys are very privileged here to have like Dr. Davis here, who's going to be able to like kind of guide you guys the way that you need to be guided. Yeah. And that's not a like if you ever think that like I'm not getting the support, like having Dr. Davis is like more support than like 90% of other programs have. Just like someone who's going to actually help you out and like write the letter that you need, and probably make the phone calls that need to be made to like get you into like where you need to be. So don't ever take that for granted, that you guys definitely have like a very, very big advocate that's going to help you out whenever you guys do decide that you want to make it happen for yourself.
I have a question for you guys. This is not out when I was applying. How big is like ChatGPT in writing your letters now?
Oh,
and like,
song?
do they have checks through the application process?
What would you guys say?
Well,
What did you guys use ChatGPT? That's my question.
English is my second language.
Mm-hmm.
I use it more so for correction of like finding words that I usually don't use in my vocabulary. But through being said, even though ChatGPT writes well, it doesn't sound in many ways human. I wanted that voice of who am I. Nobody can translate me other than me.
Yeah, that's true.
So I use it for correction or maybe finding words that could enhance my personal statement.
Yeah.
But I did not use it like write me a letter or
Yeah. And we did this. I mean, I did the same thing back in the day, like using like not ChatGPT, but just like finding synonyms for like different words, like trying to like, figure out how to put sentence structures together. But ChatGPT does the same thing, it just does it faster and like with more, background information. So
I use it in the final steps of editing. I had multiple people edit it, which I would also say is like really important for your personal statement. Getting people outside of medicine to look at it. I think that helped my personal statement a lot. But yeah, I use ChatGPT for like the last set of editing to clean up the language a little bit, make it like a little bit more succinct in different ways. But
Perfect. Okay. That's awesome. Well, any other questions? Yes. So I guess the question is whether there's any other questions that you feel like, any information that you feel like is important to share here.
I mean, I think that we've touched on a lot of things that are important, but I think that the most important thing is just do as much radiology adjacent things as you can, really to like both build your interest, but also to like have things that you can talk about when you're writing, when you're interviewing. I think that's really important. It also like helps with connections. I think just being as involved as you can, whether it's with research or with like the newsletter that we do, talking with Dr. Davis, Dr. Lin, like just trying to become engaged in the radiology community is probably, I think, the most important thing in my view.
I agree. What you guys are doing now, you are doing way better than I did. You guys, many of you are second year, and you are already in the Radiology Interest Group, seeing the MASH panel. that early involvement gonna serve you well at the time of the application. You just have to show your true interest and passion for radiology. And I think that is something that you can start doing it now by being involved in the Radiology Interest Group, by participating in meetings, helping out. I think that's gonna show the interest. When you reach third and fourth year, will be just to do away rotations and actually showing face. I mean, a lot of the diagnostic radiology or interventional radiology program, unfortunately, they have placed themselves in a position that they don't want to be a plan B. Somebody told me recently before the match, he wanted to ortho, and he said, well, I really like IR. If I don't match a ortho, I might try to use IR as a plan B. And I laugh, I say, good luck. IR is so competitive that that's not a plan B.
He didn't do his research.
No. And I think those are very different fields. You know, just
You can, yeah, you,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's they're not the same. I mean, in that vein, you know, I applied I applied radiation oncology and radiology back in the day, just because I was kind of back and forth. But like, I think by the end of my interview process, I knew I wasn't doing radiation oncology. So I'm glad that, like, you know, I got that information. But just choosing, because like each specialty is like so wide, and there's so much to do in each specialty that, like, if you feel like you have a baseline liking of like a certain specialty, you'll find a niche inside of it that will, like, you know, kind of be good for you, you know. So like, just going all these different things. Sometimes, like, I feel like sometimes people apply ortho and IR just to say that they're applying ortho and IR just so they can later on say that they did this. But like a lot of times you just want to find the field that you want to be interested in, and then just, you know, give yourself a chance to go all in on it. So yeah. All right. Any other questions? Well, we appreciate you guys having us again. Looking forward to you guys starting your radiology journeys. It's going to be exciting. Can't wait to get updates from how the world is. And can't wait to have you guys up here next year, or the next couple of years, hopefully.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. But thank you guys very much for having us. And till next time, stay low and keep firing. Thank you.
Please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you get your pods.